Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the installment of Scott Selections here for Sunday, March 7th. Before getting today's play of the day, a quick recap of what happened yesterday. We ended up having a pretty poor day as we ended up going 0-2. We lost on yesterday's play of the day video with Morgan State minus 14 and minus 110 on Fox Bet. Morgan State won against Delaware State the day before by 25, and then the back-to-backs in college basketball have still been very unpredictable, apparently, and Delaware State won one of its only games of the season outright. It was a pretty crazy game. Morgan State was up 4 at the half. Looked like they were going to blow it open potentially in the second half. And then Delaware State came on a massive run and ended up winning the game outright. Morgan State went from out-rebounding Delaware State by 14 on Friday to being out-rebounded by about 14 on Saturday, which is one of the biggest rebounding turnarounds I've seen in back-to-back days, arguably that I can remember. But either way, ended up picking up a loss there. They were never really close to covering at any point. And then we ended up losing the UFC parlay with Olberg moneyline and Makhachev moneyline, minus 122 on FanDuel. Ended up closing at around 128 or 130, depending on where you ended up shopping around. But either way, Olberg dominated the first 5 minutes, almost got a knockout in the first round. Then he completely ran out of gas, gassed himself, and ended up getting knocked down in the second round. Makhachev won easily, but that didn't matter because Olberg ended up losing in the first leg. I did mention in the UFC video, though, that Makhachev by submission at plus 450 on Fox, that was definitely a very solid value play. I'm not going to count it towards my record, but still, hopefully you're able to take some of that advice and potentially make a little bit of money there on that long shot. But either way, pretty poor day, and we'll look to bounce back here on Sunday. And for the play of the day, we're going to be sticking with college basketball. It's going to be on a primetime matchup between Michigan and Michigan State, and that game's going to be taking place at around 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. And for the play of the day, we're going to be looking at the total in this matchup, and we like the under at 137, and the best line available right now is at minus 110 on Bet Online. Time recording of 2 a.m. Eastern time. Couple reasons why I like the under in the spot. First of all, has been a lot of line movement towards the under. Line opened up at around 137. It's down to mostly 136. However, if you look on DraftKings and BetMGM, it's already at 135.5. BetOnline still is at a 137. It's the only book that I've seen that has 137. So you're getting basically a 3-point minimum of value. I think this line will continue dropping, and I do think that it's a very solid play based on where this line should be heading. Now, looking at both these teams, this once again is going to be the second straight matchup between these two teams. However, unlike the Morgan State-Delaware game, you end up having a couple of days off in between as these teams ended up playing on Thursday, and that game ended up totaling 119 points. And now this total is around 18 points higher. I just think it's way too high if you want to actually look at how that game ended up playing out. And I think this game should probably land somewhere in either the low 130s or the high 120s. But looking at some of the actual numbers for these teams, Michigan ranks 235th in offensive tempo according to KenPom. Michigan State ranks 173rd, sorry. So these two teams are both pretty slow. Michigan loves to really just keep it in the half court, and I do think that will result in fewer possessions for both teams. Keep some long shot clock eating possessions and force Michigan State to shoot it from the perimeter. Now, Michigan's also an elite defensive team, and so is Michigan State. Michigan ranks 4th in defensive efficiency, and Michigan State ranks 40th. So both these teams definitely are very, very solid at limiting the opposition. And I do think you will see both offenses struggle once again in this matchup. Now, one thing before I get into some trends here that is worth mentioning about the game on Thursday that ended up totaling at 119. Michigan State only scored 50 points, so I expect that to happen again. No, only shot 36.4% from the floor and made 0 3-pointers, went 0 for 9. Now, overall, I think Michigan State should play better at home, probably score closer to, I'd say, 59, maybe 60. I really don't see many more points than that because Michigan's defense was absolutely fantastic, and Michigan State only scoring really just, I'd say, didn't even get to the line that much, really just scoring mid-range jumpers the entire game. I don't think that's really an efficient way to score. Now, Michigan, I do think, is the more telling side offensively on why this game's total is a little bit too high. Michigan only scored 69 points in that game at home that they won by 19 against Michigan State. And some of you might be wondering, well, 69 points is not that impressive, so Michigan probably shot poorly from the field. That is not true. Michigan shot 50% from the floor and 43.8% from the three-point line, and yet only scored 69 points. So this team actually played really well offensively and couldn't even break 70. I don't see them breaking 70 in this one. I think this game will be low scoring. I do think this game will probably finish around 68 to 58, something like that. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to bank on Michigan scoring more than 69 points on the road after it was only able to score 69 at home despite shooting well from the floor in the three-point line. So I do think you will see this game turn into a bit of a rock fight. Now, looking at some trends for both these teams that all support the under, Each of Michigan's last 4 games have gone under the posted total, and each of Michigan State's last 4 games as well have gone under the posted total. And looking at some other trends, the under is 9-1 in Michigan's last 10 games following a straight-up win, and the under is also 7-1 in Michigan State's last 8 home games. So simply put, I think that after Michigan put together a solid offensive performance against Michigan State on Thursday at home, I think it will look a little bit worse. I think that it will shoot, I'd say, less efficiently from the floor and definitely shoot at a lower percentage from the three-point line. Michigan State should probably play better at home, but at the end of the day, scored 50. Michigan still loves to slow the pace. I really don't see Michigan State pushing the pace either, because this team also tends to play most of its possessions in the half court. And I do think you will see a game that's relatively close, but at the end of the day, probably finishes in the 120s. So for that reason, the play of the day once again here for Sunday, March 7th is going to be on the Michigan State under 137 and -110 on Bet Online. That's been Solomon's Scott Selection. Good luck to all of you and respect the best today. Bye, everyone.